Well, everybody is aware of the activity of the cartels, but some shows have been taking a look at dramatic shows about money laundering and how to do it. And of course, Ozark, that series, certainly a part of that, but there have been many others. We're going to talk today about how they do it. Our guest, Robert Mazur, actually infiltrated the Pablo Escobar cartel. We're going to talk about that as well. Has a new book out called The Betrayal. Robert, good to have you with us today on the program.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me.
Tell us, first of all, how you interrupted this. You're also known as an expert on money laundering. Tell us how some of the ways they do it. How these are millions of dollars. It's being laundered, isn't it? In a lot of cases.
It's actually trillions, and that's with a T. The United Nations on Drugs and Crime did a study a couple of years ago from information obtained from member nations, and they were looking for an effort to identify the illicit money seeking money laundering services, basically money seeking secrecy from governments. And that comes from a horde of different types of criminal activity, from income tax evasion to drug trafficking, illegal arms dealing, pilfering treasuries, dealing with prohibited nations. And of that $2 trillion, they estimate roughly $400 billion a year from the sale of illegal drugs. Now, I hate to say it, but the government, at best, gets maybe 1% or so of that money identified and seized. So 99% of their coffers wind up being laundered into usable money in the legal markets, and also is the fuel that funds the epidemic of corruption that we have around the world.
Yeah, and that's so easy to spot. How do they do it? Are they, like in some of the shows we've seen, they use casinos, they use other high cash businesses, right? Is that pretty accurate or not?
Well, in some cases, yes, it is. Casinos have forever, and especially currently, casinos in Canada, which are woefully regulated, are a mecca for the laundering of illegal drug proceeds. The Canadians have another very difficult situation thanks to the Italian-Canadian mafia, where they control the ports of the country. So smuggling the money out and smuggling drugs in is also a very, very easy task. There's an infinite number of ways in which you can launder that money. There are people, parts of a percentage of the international bankers and businessmen who service that money. That's what I saw when I was within not just the Medellin cartel, but the Cali cartel as well. Bankers tripping over themselves trying to provide services and make money. The black money markets around the world operate. Probably the person who's best known for that is a guy who was prosecuted a couple of years ago called Aftaf Kanani. He operated out of Pakistan and Dubai. But basically, and I was a part of the black money markets, along with other people who were legitimately bankers and businessmen. They buy and sell currencies around the world. So, for example, in one example, I would have, think back to Economics 101 with supply and demand. My professor always told me, hey, if you've got an equal amount of supply and an equal amount of demand, you're going to have the maximum amount of profit, because you won't have supply sitting around needlessly eating up capital, and you won't have a lack of supply for clients who will then go somewhere else. So my supply clients of dollars were drug traffickers. My demand clients who wanted those dollars and were willing to give up things that the traffickers wanted were mostly, quote, legitimate importers around the world. So in Colombia, if you're an importer, you want to get dollars, you got to go to the official markets. Back then, it would probably cost you 25% of the value of your money to get the dollars. You could go to the black market and buy it from me for about 10%. Now, the supply side, they're looking to get, let's keep it simple and say that they want to get the pesos that are controlled by the importer. They'll pay up to 15% of their dollars in order to get that converted to pesos. So I'm making 15% on the supply side, 10% on the demand. On $1 million swap, I make $250,000. So there are people out there that do this type of stuff day in and day out. And unfortunately, there are suitcases, trunk loads of cash that are being accumulated on the streets of the U.S., Canada, Europe, from the sale of all types of illegal drugs. And of course, we know we've got an epidemic right now of fentanyl in the United States, which is really hitting our streets because of an alliance between the Chinese triad that control the unregulated pharmaceutical companies in China, and they working with the Mexican and Colombian cartels, as well as with Hezbollah, who has the smuggling routes. So it's a very, very high bar to try to attack this problem. But last year, 2021, we had 105,000 fentanyl deaths on the streets of the United States. That's horrific.
Yeah, that's a big problem. People are taking pills. They really don't know what are in them. And the fentanyl is many times more powerful and potent than some of the other drugs that we have. So, a capsule can kill you.
It's a chemical supplement. It's a chemical supplement for heroin, and is considerably stronger, and is sometimes made so haphazardly that there may be 20 times the dosage that you think is in that capsule, that's in that pill that's really there, and that's what's killing a lot of our young people.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is interesting is what you've said too. There's a cooperation there with, I'm sure, people that are considered highly respected, right? In a lot of communities, it sounds like. Yeah,
well, within my first book, The Infiltrator, while I was working within the Medellin cartel, I was also infiltrating what was then the seventh largest privately held bank in the world, the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, BCCI, that had a presence in 72 countries. And I dealt with people as high as on the board of the bank who solicited money from every dirty location that they could possibly get it. They were dealing with drug traffickers, money launderers, illegal arms dealers, corrupt politicians, and even the intelligence community.
And what's interesting about that is that most people feel that, when you have an institution like a bank, they're going to be, very honest, upright, pillars of the community, that kind of thing. That's what makes it so interesting. Robert Mazur, thanks so much for talking to us. The book is called The Betrayal and kind of continues the real-life investigations and things that he did take care of.